Hey guys, it's Maymay, and we're going to play with some stuff today. We're going to play with the flower punch board, but we're not going to make flowers. We're going to play with my newest stamp set, which is handmade. It's, wait a minute, it's called Made with Love. I always see homemade and handmade and say that first. We're going to play with that stamp set, and we're going to do something a little different. On my Facebook group called Maymay Made It, and so did I. We have some very, very talented crafters, and one of them in particular this week was Nyoka Smith, and she did a card that had a paperclip bookmark on it, and she turned the card and the decoration into a gift, and I thought, what a cool idea. And I've seen something like what I'm going to do today done before, but not using the punch board. I thought this might be cool, and so I created one. Let me show you what we're going to do first, so you'll kind of know what we're talking about. This is what I've created. This is just a regular A2 size card, and on the front you can see I use my stamp set to do something special made just for you. I'll bring that up so you guys can see it. I know my light is very bright. So there's the front. When you open it up, it has this flap that comes out that is the bookmark, and this is done using the flower punch board. And one more thing, and then you can see on the inside in the center it says a gift handcrafted by me. And you still have room to write, and I used the little scissors because I thought they were cute. Now the cool thing is, I used one of these wheels, these, what are they? They're tracing wheels for sewing, and I did a perforated edge, so that'll tear right away. And I'll show you how I did all that. We're going to do it in a different style. Now notice I did this one very antiqued and very kind of vintage looking, and the one we're fixing to do now is going to be bright and cheery. So if you had a different kind of person you wanted to give a card to, if they had a different style, I'll give you an idea for two different styles. So here's what we're going to do to start. First, I'm going to use an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I'm going to cut this as if I were making an A2 size card as far as height. So I'm going to cut it at 5.5 inches. But I'm going to cut it on the long way so I have a more length than I need for an A2 size card. So basically I'm taking an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, cutting it at 5.5 inches down the top, and saving this in my scrap pile so I can use that for something else. Okay, now then we'll probably come back to our paper trimmer. We'll do a bunch of different trimming today. Now we're going to do some scoring. I'm going to get out my big scoreboard because we're going to use a pretty big piece of paper. You can see it goes out to, it's an 11-inch piece of paper, so it's pretty big. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to score it at 4 1/4 and then at 8 1/2. Now you might recognize these measurements, and I'll tell you why. A regular card, a regular A2 size card, is 8 1/2 wide, scored at 4 1/4 and 5 1/2 tall. So basically those two scores leave us with our bookmark intact. Okay, so put your paper in on the 11-inch side, score at 4 1/4 and at 8 1/2, and that'll get you your bookmark as well. Now let's go to the punch board, the flower punch board. Now the reason I thought of this is because I love the punch, the shape that I get from this punch. When you take the score line of your paper, and I'm going to do it on both of my scores here, and you slide it up into your punch, lining up the bottom score line here with your score line, okay? So just run that score line into there and punch it. You get this look, that kind of dropped in look, and I really, really like how that looks for this to be a bookmark. Now I'm also going to take this side and put this score line in at the top and punch it, but I'm only going to punch the top of the card, not the bottom, just the top. Now we got two more punches we need to make while we're here. I want to punch this corner and this corner so that they all match. So I'm going to place this one in. Now the trick for using this punch in this way, okay, is to line your paper up to the edge of the scoring indentation, not over top of the scoring indentation. If you go over the top, you get a funny little score, kind of like a little tag. If you do it this way, you get a nice clean score, and you don't have that funny little tag on the side. Now, anytime I've showed this in the past, I've had a lot of people tell me, why don't you just use the punch at the top and get that rounded edge? That rounded edge is not the same angle as this one, so by doing it this way, my corners will match. That one is a little more, not quite as slight as this one. Okay, so now I'm just going to come right down here. I'm going to line this paper up to the edge of that scoring indent and press, and so that gets me what I want at the top of the card. Okay, now you'll have some trash under here. We'll get rid of that. Now I'm going to go back to my scoreboard, and this is where I'm going to bring in the tracing wheel. You probably could have done this while you had it in the scoreboard. I just kind of do it now. I don't know. This is just the way I did it. Now I'm going to put this tracing wheel into the groove of the 8 1/2 score mark. You can do it starting at the top if you're more comfortable. And then I'm going to press fairly firmly and drag down. And I'll show you what that does. Can you see how that puts those little perforations in there? The little dots? I hope you can see that. Now, that is plenty enough for somebody to wiggle this back and forth and then tear that away. This paper is a nice thick cardstock. It's about 65 pounds, but it's a good firm thickness. The first one I did was on craft cardstock and it was lighter, so I used a lighter hand when I did that. You'll probably just have to play around with that, but this way you'll have it where the recipient can just tear that away. Now, if you don't have this little scoring tool, it doesn't really matter. It would take 2 seconds for somebody to take a pair of scissors and just cut that away. It'd be no big deal. Now, I went into a 6x6 pad of paper and just started digging around and getting some little things out I thought would be cute. The first thing I did was build my bookmark, and I'll show you what I found. I found this little piece that says, "This is the good life," and I'm not a reader, but I would think if I was, I would think that reading is the good life. And I thought this would be super cute right here on this side of the bookmark. And then I found this piece that has like a little file tab on it to go on the back side of the bookmark, so it'll actually go back there. And then if somebody wants to make notes or something, they'll have a place to do it. Now, I need to cut this down a little bit because it's a little bit too long. So let's trim this up. I'm going to cut it right to that word because I want to fit all the words in. And this is the fun way to kind of play with your papers. Just pull out a paper pad and then just start kind of playing with what you've got. That's what I did with the first one too. I'm going to leave this out for a second because I think I'm going to need it for the next one. So see, now that's going to fit onto my onto my bookmark. Okay, let's trim this. Oh, it wasn't this one. It was this one. Let's trim it the same. So this one ended up being how long? This one ended up being 5 3/8. So I'm going to turn this around and do this cut at 5 3/8. So they'll be the same length. And they were already the width I'm going to use because I couldn't get them any wider from my paper pack because that's the design that was on there. Now, while I'm here, I wanted to look at this center piece. I know I want to run this guy right down the side here because it says the life is good sentiment also. But I want to cut it off at 5.5 inches so it'll be the length of the page. So I'm just going to take this little guy and not this way, almost cut the wrong end off, and cut it down to 5.5 inches. So we got that part done. Now I want to show you this. I found this little piece in my paper pad and cut it away to use it, and then I just cut a little white mat out to go behind it so you'll be able to see it good. So that one's ready to go. But now I need a cover, something for the front of my card. And I know that the front of my card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I'm going to cut this down to 4 by 5 1/4 to give me a good mat. This may be totally confusing, but when you start putting yours together, you'll know how to do your mats. It'll make sense. So just start with that base and then build your card on top of it. I do that a lot. I explained that the other day, that I kind of start from the bottom and work my way up. Now, I like for my bookmark to be on the inside of the page, but you might want it to actually fold over the top. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go in and fold this. Nice and snug. If you want it to come over the top and be part of the front of the card decoration, just do it like that and you have like a flap card. But I like it on the inside like this. So my card would be just like that. Okay? Now we got to do some rounding with our flower punch board one more time. This is the cover, this is the mat for the front of the page, and we want the corners to match. So I'm going to put it right back into my flower punch board, line it up at the indentation for the score mark, and punch, and then flip it over and do the same thing. That flipping over ensures that you get the corners at the top all punched. Now this becomes the mat for the front of the card. Isn't that cute? I love it so far. Okay, this doesn't need to be punched because I'm going to use it just like it is. This guy's going on the inside of the card, and I want this curve to match in this corner. So I'm just going to punch that curve of that corner. Not worried about the other side. Okay, so now I've got that curve ready. Then these are my bookmarks, and they need to be punched on both sides. So I'm going to line this guy up to the score line and punch. Move it over to the other side score line and punch. So there's one side of the bookmark, and now I'll do the other one. And slide it over here. Remember, lining it up to that score line, not past it. If you go on top of that score line, you get a funny little indentation up here. So now I think we're ready to put this guy together. That's the fun part. Let's do that. Alright, so, got stuff going everywhere. Some of this I can go ahead and stick down because I know where it's going. Like, for example, this piece. I know that's going right there, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick it down. So it will just go. And see how our curves all match now? So everything lines up like it should. That's super cool how that does. Now then, on the inside of the card, right here, I want to put this piece that I cut with just the one corner. See that? I just did that one corner rounding, so that piece is going to go right there. Okay, so I got this guy all ready to go down. It's going to go right here in this area. And I didn't cut it short to have a mat. I cut it to fill the whole area. And the reason for that was I wanted that wording to fit. Now, you also might have noticed that, well, you might not have noticed, but I had to go from my ATG to my liquid glue because I ran out of ATG right in the middle. Does that happen to you guys? All right, so there's basically the card. Now let's do this guy. So this is going to go here to be the front of my bookmark, which I love that there. These are not my colors necessarily, but I like these bright colors. I'm much more drawn to these. So put this guy down on this side. Get it into place just like so. Now I'm going to flip this page over and put this one on the back to keep building our bookmark card. I love finding different ways to use my flower punch board and my scoreboards and any kind of punches that I have. I love to find different ways to use them. I think it really, you know, extends the life or makes them something more. You get more for your buck that way. So the bookmark goes to the inside, the card closes like this, but the front needs some decoration, and that's what this little guy is for. And let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stamp it with that stamp set I showed you. So I've got some Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I hid my stamp set from me. Here it is. I just got to decide what I want to put on the front. I think I'm going to do a gift just for you on the front. So, a gift. There's that part. And then just is here. And you know what I have done? I've laid these down on my project so I can see exactly where I want them to stamp. And then I can kind of line them up better that way and make sure everything's going where it should go. I actually think just can go that way. Then I just pick it up with my block and I know they're where they should be. Just for you. I love that. Okay, that's the front of the card. So let's assemble it and put it on real quick. And I'm going to do it with some foam tape because I think it's cute if we pop it up. By doing one thickness, if I wanted it to be even higher, I could always add another thickness to the matte piece before I put it down. I think this will be plenty. And I'm just going to wet glue this guy in place. And I just kind of want it to be kind of sloppy on the front. Now you could have added ribbon or anything, and we may go back and add something right down here just for cuteness. Now I've got this inside section that I want to stamp, and I want it to say, so the front says, a gift just for you, and I'm going to call it uniquely made by me. So uniquely made, oops, stuck to me, by me. And I'm just going to lay these out and then pick them up. Whoops. One thing I like when I'm stamping is I like to kind of make the letters kind of go in between the letters above to make it look like one stamp instead of like 3 different stamps on the page. I'm kind of lining this point of this D up in that gap of those letters, and then I'm probably going to take this point of this B, I'll get it to slide, and put it above, like it's kind of where the made kind of sits in there. I think that looks good when you do that. I think it makes it look very cohesive, like the stamp came that way. So, pick that up and stamp it down. Isn't that cute? I love it. Okay, now then, I'm going to move that aside for a minute, and I want to finish this bookmark. And the way I'm going to do that is to poke a hole in it with my crocodile, which I also hid from myself. Man, I'm hiding stuff today. Okay, so here's my crocodile. And because this is going to be a bookmark and get a lot of use, I'm going to run my hole kind of far down so that my ribbons won't tear out, or whatever I put in there. I'm probably going to just put baker's twine in it, but I don't want those to tear away. So I got this orange baker's twine out, and here's what I like to do. I take a big long piece of it like this, and then I just line the ends up. So basically find the middle, okay? Then I take those ends to that and find that middle again. And now I just cut that loop so that they're separate pieces. And that's how I get 4 pieces in the same length. Can you see how those are the same length? Now then, I'm going to stick this through this hole. And if you have trouble, you can use a tool to help you or whatever, but that hole, I use the larger hole on the crocodile, so it makes that a little easier. Now I'm just going to do a slip knot through here and tighten this down. So I've tightened that into place, and I want to show you one other thing I did. I kind of loosened that knot up just a little bit and took the tip of my glue and squirted some glue down in there and then tightened it just a little bit more. So that way that will stay in place and the recipient won't have to worry about the baker's twine coming out. Just kind of give it a little extra hold. Alright, so now the bookmark's ready. We can fold it down. The front of the card is here. Let's find something to put here. It just is screaming for something, I think. So I went back to the paper pad and I found this little one that says happy day. And isn't it always a happy day when you get something from a friend? Or look, there's hello. And that's cut out perfectly too. I'm going to go with happy day. I think it's cute. So either side would have worked on that one. I didn't even realize it was on the back. Isn't that perfect how that works out sometimes? Wonder how many times you've changed your mind. Tell me in the comments whenever you flipped a paper over, how many times have you changed your mind and gone with the other version or the other part of the paper? I think that really makes the front. Happy day, because there's a gift just for you, uniquely made by me. Cute, huh? Now, if you were very ambitious, I want to show you this. I do not have many of these left in the store, but if you wanted to put tear here, this is the action stamp set, and it has the words tear and here, and it even has an arrow if you wanted to. Let's do that. I'll show you how that works. I think it'll be cute. I want to show you something. On this stamp set, there's a little exclamation point right here, and I put it onto my Stampin' Block, and I just think it'll be cute at the end of uniquely made by me, because I use an exclamation point all the time. So I'm going to add that to this card, and I think I'll put it on the front too. A gift just for you with an exclamation point. Too cute. I love mixing stamp sets because it means you get more for your money that way. Now I've taken these guys off. I'm fixing to say tear. So I've taken these guys off of the pad. Off of the stamp set. That one says tear, and this one says here. So I'm going to put them right close to each other here. And then I'll do the arrows separately because I can stamp it right where I want it. So tear here. So see, tear here, and then let's do the arrow. And I'm going to stamp it. I got to do it at the top because I didn't leave room for it at the bottom, but it will work. Cute enough. See that? Tear here. That's what I try to do that with my stamp sets. I want them to be something that worked for your cards where you can just turn them into anything you want them to be. So there is the bright and cheery one. Here is the more antique or rustic looking one. And I think they're both super, super cute. You guys tell me what you think. And if you like finding another way to use that flower punch board, because I sure do. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching today. If you make this card or any card using any of my stamp sets or anything that you want to share with us, head over to Maymay Made It and So Did I on Facebook. There'll be a link below, and share your projects with us. If you don't make anything we make and you just want to see what everybody else is doing, join up too. It's super fun. You just ask to join. We'll get you included in the group and you'll be able to see what everybody's making. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed these. I will talk to you on Wednesday. Have a great week.